All right, here we go, diving back into the conversation. Look, it is no secret. Look, my own daughter's like, Dad, I don't want to fly. I don't want to fly, and we've got spring break coming up. I'm like, come on. She's like, man, they're falling out of the air like flies. Well, we've had some trouble in the airline industry recently, that's for sure. I keep watching this video. I'm trying to understand why this jet landing in Toronto suddenly collapses, catches its right wing, and flips over. By the way, Delta offering each one of those passengers $30,000 for their trauma. Yeah, that's not going to get it done, Delta. Bad news. They're going to want a lot more money than that for the nightmares and the things that are going to go on. Joining me now, Charles Sauer. He is the president of the Market Institute. Charles, nice to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my question is this. How are the airlines and the other industries, they're failing and they're faltering. We've got these cuts. We've got crashes. We've got inefficiency. But I look at some of the things that are going on, and you point this out in some of the things that you talk about. Some of these companies are being prevented from merging, which would create a bigger, stronger, more effective company, and yet the government steps in and says, no, you can't merge here. Smaller airlines that are faltering. Why is that? Why is the government interfering here when you would think that a bigger airline might have better maintenance, better planes, better crews, better safety records, all of it?
So there was a lot of things that we all know that the Biden administration didn't do. They didn't act on the economy. They didn't act in foreign policy. But one of the places where we didn't talk about it as much was the actions that they took at the Federal Trade Commission, the actions that Lina Khan inflicted on our economy. So the FTC for years had the idea of the consumer welfare standard, where everything that the FTC did was to make sure that consumers were better off. But Lina Khan took a holistic approach where she looked at the whole economy. And by the whole economy, she means protecting unions. And so, doing it under their political philosophy, because the way you protect unions is you just get rid of them and you let the market work, which will provide better jobs. But Lina Khan wanted to protect the union. So what she did is she stopped all mergers across the economy. So when you look from any
Charles,
place in the economy,
let me jump in here because I think unions are a big problem, not just there. But the unions are a big problem with what's happening with Donald Trump trying to cut the size and scope of the federal government. Franklin Roosevelt was smart enough to realize you should never have public sector unions. I mean, your New Deal champion said public sector unions are terrible because they're playing poker with the taxpayers' money. And so it's always about, and why is it? So it's unions in the private sector, in the airline industry, for example. It's the unions in the public sector, and it's all about political money. I mean, these unions, by the way, if they lose 60, 80,000 dues-paying members at the government level, they're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in annual dues. It's big power being taken away from the unions, and that's all they're fighting
exactly,
for.
Because people don't understand this. When you see police that have been caught profiling people or caught abusing their power and they're still on the job, that's because of unions. If you see teachers, we recently had this in Fairfax County, that have been caught possibly abusing students and they're still in the classroom, that is because of the teachers' unions. It is hard to fire these public sector union employees. But I want to get back to this just for a second because I think mergers are important. I think the airline industry is important. Spirit Airlines was stopped from merging with JetBlue. The COVID hurt all of these guys. And so they just wanted to join forces so they could compete against the bigger airlines. And they weren't allowed to do it. And so now we have layoffs. We have fewer flights, which is going to end up raising prices for everybody, which is what, given a holistic approach to protect the unions, what Lina Khan was trying to avoid. But it's a ridiculous thing. You need to let the market work. And fortunately, I think that President Trump is going to do that.
Well, we'll see. And I hope he is. I hope that we're look, again, the interference of the government into what should be markets and free trade creates problems. It never helps free trade. It drives up prices, lowers efficiency, creates other issues. The meddling of the government, I mean, I'm not totally laissez-faire, but I'm a lot closer to that than where we are today, I'll tell you that. Get the government out of the way. For example, I got a haircut yesterday, right? And in Michigan, where I live, you have to have a license to cut hair. right? Wouldn't the market dictate whether or not the guy stays in business? If he does a lousy job cutting hair, he'll be eliminated. He doesn't need to be licensed by the state of Michigan and pay that government a fee to go to work. You know, when I was born, about 5% in America of the people going to work paid a fee so that they could go to work. Today, it's about half. Isn't that stunning, Charles? I mean, absolutely stunning.
So what I want to do is take that to the next level, though, because it raises those prices, raise the cost of you getting a haircut.
That's right.
But what really hurts me, and the real problem that I see in the economy is, and it's the same with mergers, when you have a fee to enter into an industry, you stop people from entering that industry, which means you have less competition, you have less supply. If you have less competition and less supply, you just have higher prices, and that harms all of us. With mergers, it's the same thing. If I build a company and I can't sell it at the end, investors don't want to invest in me. If investors don't want to invest in me, I can never compete with the big companies that are already incumbent and up on top of the market. So this is a problem across all of our economy. We need to really back the government out. Grover Norquist says government needs to be small enough that we can fit it in a bathtub so we can drown it. I think you would agree with me, and I loved what you were saying there, but we are way bigger than that right now. And it'll be interesting to see how far DOGE can go in cutting back our government. I think it'll really show if they start going after Social Security and Medicare and the programs that are really taking over our budget.
I mean, we spent a lot of time, a considerable amount of time on this program and elsewhere over the last 2 or 3 weeks talking about USAID, right? And all the money that it's squandering on sex change operations in Guatemala and DEI efforts in Serbia or whatever. That is a very tiny bit of this conversation. When you get into Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Department of Defense, you're going to find real numbers. Real numbers. And I heard Donald Trump say last night in Miami that when we reveal a couple of these things, there's going to be some people that are really, really embarrassed. He's got something big he's about to rip the curtain back on. Because for the first time in my lifetime, we're actually cutting government. We're doing the right thing. We're doing what every president of my lifetime has promised to do. And some tried more than others. I mean, Ronald Reagan tried. Bill Clinton tried. Donald Trump is doing the job. I'll give you the last word.
So I don't know if you've ever read a lot of my work, but the fact is I have a lot of negative ink against President Trump. And one of the things I have to say about Trump 2.0 is that he is taking action like no president that we've ever seen. I almost took a job under the first Trump administration as a chief of staff at USAID, and that was going to be just to cut people. This time, he didn't need that position. They just cut all of USAID. So I'm interested to see where he goes. There's billions of dollars that can be cut, even in good programs like Medicare Advantage.
I agree
to
with
take care
you.
of fraud. So,
and Charles, listen, I don't agree with him on everything either. But I am looking at this and watching some pretty cool stuff happen that I've been waiting for my entire life, and watch garbage spending and all of our money being shipped overseas to God only knows what. Circumcisions in Mozambique, that was only $10 million. They should be cutting, but not those guys. They should be cutting spending. Charles, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Charles Sauer, everybody. It was good fun. $10 million. Circumcisions in Mozambique. Yeah. Let's cut somewhere else, shall we? I'll be right back.